people. That statement, God's people, is one that should give each one of us a sense of our own dignity, of our own value as an image of God. We were reminded that at Ash Wednesday when we were signed with the cross. You belong to God. We have the sign over here on the side made by our school children. You're the beloved, beloved by God. Our dignity as persons, then, and it's so important that we remember this, doesn't come because of our nationality, doesn't become because of our color or our gender. Our dignity as person doesn't come because of some law of the land. Our dignity comes because we are created in the very image and likeness of God, each and every one of us. And so we are reminded in the gospel of today that Jesus, who was born one like us in all things but sin, shares our dignity as a human person, understood our joys and our hopes, our sorrows and our griefs, was able to feel the terror and the fear that we experience at times in our own lives. But it's a dignity in Jesus that shines forth, that somehow through the experience of the apostles and the experience of their life with Jesus, that light shines forth, that divine light, that very life of God within Jesus. I was reminded of that this past week. We celebrated with Mass with Bishop Murray, Walsh University in the gym. All of our grade school students gathered together. And as I looked around the gymnasium, I started from the right, and I looked around, and then all of a sudden, I saw all of our kids from Our Lady of Peace. Not that I was prejudiced at all. But absolutely beautiful sight. An absolutely beautiful sight. And I saw them with all dressed up. I saw them with their ties on. I saw them with their hair combed. I saw them at their very best. And I can guarantee you that as I looked at them, the thing that I thought is that very presence and that dignity, that seed of God that is in them. So precious and so important. So many images made up on that side of the gym. And as I looked at that moment in time, I thought how difficult it is, because sometimes we don't recognize that in the hallway during school. We don't necessarily recognize that every day in the classrooms. But it was all there as this beautiful collage, an absolutely beautiful collage. And I thought how easy it was to see that. How easy it should be to be able to see that divine image in us. But it's a challenge, just as it was a challenge for the disciples to see that image in Jesus, that divine life, that divine image. But today in the story that we heard in the gospel, the followers of Jesus see the human face of Jesus, that very divine life of God within him. And so, when we look at each other, do we, as today's followers of Jesus, do we see the face of God? Do we see the light and the life of God shining through us? We should be able to see God's light. We should be able to see God's life, because God's life is love. God's life is goodness. God's life is justice. God's life is peace. God's life is gentleness. God's life is holiness. So where there is love, where we are good to one another, where we work for justice and peace, where we are gentle with each other as husbands and wives, as parents and children, and neighbor to neighbor, then we can see the holiness of God in our lives. And that it shines forth. It comes forth just as it does in Jesus. God's life shines through us like the sun shining through the window. If you turn around and look, you see the sun shining through that window. You see the sun shining through these windows. Now look to the person next to you and see the light of God, the light of God's grace shining through you. God's life shines through us like it shined through an ordinary carpenter's son from Nazareth, the one we call Jesus. So this coming week, I would ask you to try to see the dignity of each person we meet, whether that comes in the person of John or Susie, Mike or Zach, Caitlin or Wendy, Pedro or Rosa, Dejan or Colette, or Mayuki, or Gianni, and let the life of God shine through each one of us.